So I'm sure all of you have come across a spider plant, and unfortunately, usually when you see a spider plant, it's normally like a sad, yellowy, insipid little specimen on the side of a windowsill. So they don't generally look very good. So it's highly surprising, and they don't seem to be as popular as they used to be. You don't really see them for sale. But if you look after them well and give them the conditions they require, you can get a fantastic looking specimen like this one right here. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to care for your spider lily and really get the best out of them, because let's be honest, that looks amazing and is a wonder in any tropical effect or exotic garden. So this is my spider plant in our garden, and we only planted it up this year and it's doing really well. I mean, these are a vigorous evergreen plant, and they're from originally from tropical and South Africa, so it requires the heat, it requires sunlight, but I find it does very well under the shade of this particular tree. But you know, generally in the shade prevents scorching if it doesn't get enough water. So be aware that this is a big growing foliage plant. It can grow up to about 2 feet tall, and all these tendrils coming off, which have both the blooms and these pups that, you know, if you get close to it, might better find some root on these. But these are easy to put on and grow. Look at that one there, that's doing very well. You know, easy to put on and grow. Oh, and you can see some roots. See some roots there just coming off. So it's such a good plant. It wants to grow. So long as you give it what it requires, it will do a really good job for you. But look at that. I mean, how many other plants are going to have this massive mother plant at the top and then bring down all these exotic looking tendrils? There aren't many. So it's a fantastic plant. And even though it's not an epiphyte, and an epiphyte is a plant that grows on top of another plant, you know, you see that a lot in South American rainforests. You know, it looks the part, it really does. And all I've done here is plant this into a hanging basket, and over time, as all this foliage grows, that basket will be hidden. It will just be a ball of foliage. Now the thing is, if you're growing these in a hanging basket, then there's always an issue of watering. Now you can water it quite a lot, but you need to make sure that the water that you put into the basket kind of stays into the basket. Now you don't want it waterlogging, but you do want it to remain moist, really at least for a day. But in the summer, if you've got the heat and also drying winds, you need to water these more. You're going to need to water these once in the morning and once in the afternoon during these hot periods of time. Normally watering once a day is fine, and outside of the heat of the summer, once a week will probably do the trick. But to help keep the moisture in there, use like a heavy loam. You could put a saucer at the base inside the pot, or line it with plastic, but make sure that you got holes in the plastic that allow the water to at least slowly drain through. And if you're using like a one of those tough sort of like a paper, like tough paper cardboard liners, make sure that you got a good sort of like inch drop from the surface of the basket to where the soil is, so when you water it, it doesn't just roll off the top and onto the floor. So it gives an opportunity to build up, you know, and then sink back down into the soil. With regards to fertilizing these plants, as a general rule of thumb, for many pot plants, you tend to water weekly and feed monthly. But of course, as I said before, you know, in hot summers and drying winds, that watering needs to increase, because the plants, they lose moisture through transpiration in order to stop the plants from overheating and drying out and dying. So with regards to feeding, you know, general rule of thumb, once a month. But in the growing period, the height of growing period, you could feed these with a lovely liquid soluble fertilizer such as Miracle Grow. You feed that once a week. Now, just as a quick note regarding watering, spider plants are known to be sensitive to water that contains fluoride. Now, here in the UK, we tend to use chlorine in the water to act as a sterilant to make it safe for people. But in other parts of the world, they can use fluorine, and that can affect the leaves, that can make them damage. So if you are in part of the world that does have fluorine in the water or fluoride in the water, then allow the water to stand for a day or so before watering it. It allows that gas to sort of like dissipate out into the future. Alternatively, use rainwater, you know, and then there's no worries whatsoever. So with regards to these, there's really only kind of two choices that you get. There's two variegated forms. You've got this form, which is Chlorophytum, comosum variegatum, and you can tell that one because the variegatum cultivar has got a green centre to the leaf. And the second cultivar that you generally find, which is Vitatum, that has it's like an opposite variegation, so that's got a light greeny cream stripe down the middle. Now, just because we're growing outside doesn't mean it can stay outside all year, because spider plants, they're not hardy. You can keep it outside through most of the year. You're going to need to keep it indoors really until the end of late frosts have passed. So you're looking at about probably May, June time, but it's down to you to keep an eye on the weather, make sure there's no late frost, and keep an eye on overnight temperatures. And once those frosts have passed, put it straight out. If you're putting it under the shade of a tree, you don't need to harden them off, and really they can stay there right until the end of the autumn. Really, as soon as nighttime temperatures start to drop below 7-6 degrees Celsius, you can think about bringing them in, and they will need to then stay in for the rest of the year until the following spring. Now, that being said, there are examples and anecdotal evidence where people have left their spider plants to grow outside over winter and in freezing conditions, and yet come the following spring they have survived. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing that. On the whole, they will be killed off by cold temperatures. But it is possible if it's in a shelter position and a free draining position, because for many plants it's not just the cold, it's the cold and the wet. So long as the soil is free draining, for example, in a raised bed or just a very sandy soil, then it's possible they can survive the winter, but that's not recommended. But if you've got plenty of plants to spare and you want to try it, then why not. They do have these swollen roots, so they do have the capacity to hold a lot of energy. So if they have survived, then yes, they can grow back, but 9 times out of 10 you're probably going to lose your plants. Now, when it comes to pests and disease, these are pretty robust, which is why they're such an ideal houseplant for beginners. The only thing they tend to get is a possible scale insect, and a scale insect is like a wingless aphid, but other than that they really don't have a problem. So to conclude, so long as the soil is kept moist but not waterlogged, so long as they're in or out of direct sunlight and fed fairly regularly, they tend to just look after themselves. And just look how good it is. I mean, what a fantastic kind of architectural kind of shape it has. And I love them. I wasn't a big fan of them when I was younger, because like I said before, you often see them looking a bit sad in a hospital waiting room or something, neglected and not looked after. They that sounds like the power coming back in. But anyway, if you've got any other good advice with regards to caring for your spider plant, then let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.